Avalanche forward Nazem Kadri appears to be in a lot of hot water with player safety and is likely facing a lengthy suspension. Big news out of Columbus, JD returns and what other changes might be coming. And it sounds like the Canucks players really want head coach Travis Green to return. We'll discuss those situations coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we have a couple of different news items to talk about today. I want to start things off with the likelihood that Nazem Kadri is going to be suspended by NHL player safety. And not only that, he's likely going to be suspended for a fairly lengthy amount of time. Now, in case you missed it, last night in the Avalanche Blues series, Game 2, there was a really bad, dirty, illegal check to the head by Nazem Kadri on Blues defenseman Justin Faulk. Now, of course, I can't show the clip here. The NHL will copyright the video and will be in some hot water, so we're not going to do that. But I can show you a still image of the play, and I'll kind of blow it up here so you can get as good a look as you can. But as you can see from this image, I think there's direct contact with the head. There's no doubt he went out of his way, could have avoided this. He was given a match penalty on the play as well. So that's an automatic review by player safety. So match penalty typically means not only was it a bad hit, but like intent to injure. So we've seen a history of Nazem Kadri in the playoffs especially, but to a degree in the regular season as well. It just seems to get amped up in the playoffs where he sometimes loses his cool and goes over the top. And we've had situations where he felt like he was protecting teammates and whatever, but he puts his team in a really bad spot. And I can understand why some people would be very, very frustrated by this, because Nazem Kadri is a really good hockey player. He does not need this element to his game. He can play physical. He can be that guy who's really hard to play against, but he does not have to cross the line and put his team in trouble like this. The Avalanche were leading this game, and he gave the Blues a 5-minute power play, and now he's going to leave his team weakened and shortened here with a less experienced player likely going to have to replace him in the lineup for quite a while. It's not a good scene. We've seen 2 times in a row he put his former team, the Toronto Maple Leafs, in a bad predicament by taking suspensions against the Boston Bruins, back-to-back series against the Bruins. He took suspensions in round 1 both times. Ultimately, the Leafs lost both of those series, and you can't say that it was all on Kadri, but I can fairly say I think that it was definitely a factor. It factored in. Kadri was a very important player for Toronto. He's still an important player for the Avalanche. I think it's fair to say that his role with the Leafs was a little bigger, though, than when he gets in Colorado, but still a very important piece to them. And again, for the third time, and you know when it comes to player safety, as much as I've had my gripes about them and complained about the inconsistency, and I'm going to stand by all those comments, they typically do. A big factor is history. And this guy's shown that he has not learned. He's been suspended 5 times in his career, twice in the playoffs. And I just have a bad feeling that this is going to be an in-person hearing, which offers them the ability to do 5 or more games. Now, we know they also factor in the playoffs that a playoff game is a more valuable, important game than a regular season game. So like a 1-game suspension in the playoffs would be like equal to like a 2-game regular season or something like that. So you know that if it's a regular season suspension, and they're going to say, okay, well, if it was regular season, we'd probably give them, say, 8 to 10. You're looking at like 5, or it could be more. I don't know, because he's such a repeat offender now that it's really hard to say. But if they're going to offer an in-person hearing, which is what many NHL sources this morning are suspecting that'll happen, and those can actually be done via Zoom, and he can actually decline it as well and just do like a phone hearing. It's up to him. It's really in his court. Depends on what he's offered. But it's most likely, I'm going to say he's done for the rest of this series. And maybe even more than that. I can't imagine a scenario where they kick him out for the rest of the playoffs. I wouldn't think it'd be that harsh, but he's going to be in a lot of hot water here. So we'll see what happens. I'll likely do another video once we have a outcome on the player safety ruling. But it's 100% getting reviewed because of the match penalty. They're going to factor in the injury to Justin Faulk. Now, we don't know where the status of Faulk is today. I would imagine they'll be checking in with the Blues to find out, but he did leave the game and did not return, so there's definitely injury on the play. He was obviously given a match penalty, so they'll have to factor in what he's already been punished for and kind of go from there. But either way, it's another avoidable play by Nazem Kadri, and I wish he would learn and kind of stay on the edge instead of going over it. He's a gritty player, plays with a lot of heart, a lot of passion, protects his teammates, does a lot of good things. But he can't be doing stuff like this and injuring other players and putting himself out where he cannot be an impact in a positive way and only have a negative impact. So let me know your thoughts on the hit, what kind of suspension you think he's going to get. And like I said, we'll do likely an updated video later on, probably sometime later today. Would be my guess. I imagine it could be tomorrow, but I would think it'd be today. We'll find out what's going to happen to him beyond that. Now, as I mentioned, we have some other news here. First up, I wanted to quickly talk about the Canucks and Travis Green. Now, of course, we did get confirmation through Elliot Friedman and other sources that Jim Benning is not going anywhere as general manager. So the GM spot is going to be remaining the same. The owners, apparently, along with management, are talking to some former players like the Sedins about coming in to work with a different capacity. We don't know exact fine details on what they could do if they do indeed accept a role with the organization. But based on the regular season now finally being over for the Canucks and hearing comments from the players, we heard from Thatcher Demko. I saw quotes from Quinn Hughes, JT Miller, and a few others. They all seem to really like playing for Travis Green, and they all made comments and alluded to the fact that they really hope that he's back. I know in the case of Thatcher Demko, he also made a lot of really positive, complimentary remarks regarding Ian Clark, who's the goalie coach, and they really want our coaching staff back. It's been an incredibly tough season. The Vancouver Canucks officially lost the game yesterday and now finished last in the North Division. I know that's something that a lot of people didn't predict. I know in my prediction video before the season, all I said was that the Senators would not finish last. And to be completely honest, I did have the Canucks in mind for who I thought that would be. However, I'm not sure that they would have finished last if they wouldn't have had a lot of things go against them this year. I'm not sure they would have been a playoff team either, but they certainly, that COVID outbreak did a number on them. The injury to Pettersson kept him out for half the season. That obviously had a big impact, and a lot of those things you can't predict. So they've had a tough year, and I kind of feel for them. I don't think they're as bad a team as they appear to be in the standings. There were some positives this year, but just not a lot of them. And I would hope, given the tough situation and everything that this team has been through, that they're not going to punish Travis Green and his staff over that. I don't really think it's their fault. I think they did a good job with what they could. I mean, and really, if you look at the issues, I feel are more like with the roster, with a lot of the bad contracts and the bottom six expensive contracts and the last year's free agency debacle. That's on management. That's not on the coaching staff. And for them to leave the coaching staff hanging like this right to the end of the regular season with no deal in place, that either says that there are some negotiations going on, but they're being incredibly cheap with them, or they just are leaving them hanging and aren't convinced or sure that they want to bring them back, which is also a head scratcher as well. So we'll see, but I guarantee based on these comments, if Green does not return and Clark does not return, we're going to have some very unhappy Canucks players, and that could be a whole other set of issues to deal with this franchise. And I just don't know what they're doing. There's a lot of question marks that it just doesn't make sense to me right now. But we do have some more positive news to talk about. John Davidson will be making his return to the Columbus Blue Jackets. We saw the early reports last night with the rumors that he was going back as president of hockey operations before he left for the Rangers organization. Of course, no hard feelings on Columbus's part. They knew for JD and his love and link to the Rangers in the New York area that was a dream job for him. They're blessing for him to go give that a shot, and now he's back. And he signs a 5-year contract. I know there's a lot of people wondered, maybe would John Davidson go back to television? Would he maybe retire? Obviously, Davidson still has the passion to work for the game, and he's going back. So, I mean, him and Jarmo Kekalainen had a great working relationship, great friendship, and they've also extended Kekalainen as well for an extra couple of years, and he's signed now through the 24-25 season. So JD and Kekalainen's contracts are almost in sync there. I believe JD's would be 1 year longer if I'm doing the math right. So they are going to go back to work here. They did a lot of good work with building up this Jackets franchise, getting them into the playoffs on a fairly consistent basis. Obviously, they're going to have a new head coach, and that's going to be one of the big things they have to decide on. And there's already talk. I know I was listening to Elliot Friedman on the radio this morning, doing a Sirius XM hit, talking, and this is only his opinion. It wasn't so much that he's hearing things are in the works or anything, but he kind of wondered if they might bring in Jeff Gorton. I mean, obviously, Gorton's a guy who would probably prefer to be a GM right now, but there's not too many job openings. It's a situation where when you're let go as a GM, quite often if you want to continue working at the NHL level, you have to take another role, different capacity, while you're waiting for that next opportunity. It's not that often that you see them get fired and within a couple of days or weeks they can go right to another team. It does happen. But if you look around the league right now, I'm just not real sure that there's going to be openings. Now, Gorton might want to wait a little while before he makes a decision either way, if there's an offer from the Jackets or not, because clearly, there's some teams that are going to be eliminated from the playoffs, and there could be changes there. There's also wondering if David Quinn, former Ranger coach, could be a fit in Columbus, because he's looking for work and they're looking for a coach. Obviously, John Davidson, very familiar with David Quinn. Some wonder if David Quinn will be a good coach where he's, supposedly better on the development side, might be a good coach for their younger players that they're going to have to mix in. Some feel he'd be a good coach for a guy like Patrick Laine. I don't know exactly if it would be a great fit or not, but I know that there are some questions out there. I know it was also brought up on this video hit from Friedman. So not to say that the Jackets are going to become, the Rangers 2.0 or the Rangers of the past or anything like that, but there is a real possibility that, at least one or two of those guys between Gorton and Quinn could possibly end up over there because of JD's influence. But either way, the Jackets need a coach, and I'm sure Quinn will at least be somebody that they consider and talk to, I would think. I mean, it's many of the others that are available out there. Lots of big names. It's going to boil down to as well what they're willing to spend on a coach and who they feel is the best fit for where the team is at right now. So some fairly big news this morning. Like I said, we'll be back later with another video on the Kadri suspension update. Probably going to be other videos today as well, so certainly stay tuned for that. And we'll make sure you leave your comments down below. What do you think about the JD return to Columbus? Who do you think they'll bring in as a next head coach? Do you think Jeff Gorton would go work for them, maybe in an advisory role or an assistant GM role while he's waiting for that next opportunity? You just never know. So let me know your thoughts there, and we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.